And whether you call that God or the universe or the highest good, love is the actual activating force on this planet, and that is available to us all. But we have to be willing to transform what's in the way of it to be able to access it.
Welcome, beautiful souls, to Say Yes to Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Tessa Lynn Alburn, and I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. This is the space where we empower women like you to connect deeply with your soul, to shine in your business, and live a life filled with purpose and joy. Whether you're seeking to embrace your inner brilliance, cultivate meaningful connections, or be generously compensated for the unique gifts you bring to the world, you've come to the right place. As we navigate the busyness of the new year, we'll explore how to honor the dark, restful days of winter and use them as an opportunity for soulful reflection and renewal. So get cozy, get present, and let's journey together into the season of transformation. Hello there. Today we have a guest by the name of Lisa Dunford Dickman, and she's an awesome person. She's got a beautiful heart and soul. She's like an art medicine woman, transformational coach, of course. But I think one of the super cool things about her is all the traveling she's done and like where her journey's taken her as she's wandered the globe for more than 15 years, as she authored 40 plus Lonely Planet travel guidebooks. Like, is that amazing or what? She's lived in multiple countries. She can tell you more about that. She speaks 4 languages and 5 if you count Texan. I want you to meet her. She is a joyful person, and her greatest joy is leading annual Sea to Safari open to magic retreats. So, Lisa, welcome to Say Yes to Your Soul.
Thank you, Tessa. It's so great to be here.
Yay. I'm really glad we met. And, I actually wrote, I think I did a podcast about this and wrote some emails and blog posts or whatever I did around my trip to Texas because I almost didn't go. But then I wound up meeting all these amazing people like yourself. And so I'm glad you're here. And you brought your beautiful, calm self, and you're like just so together. But you're like you got a little adventure queen inside of you, and you have really created a life where you're living into your travel desires and all the transformation that can come from that lifestyle and those events. And so I'd love to have you share with our listeners today a couple of things, really. I mean, a little bit about this adventurous stuff, but also really share with them, Lisa, if you can, like how you're still limiting yourself or how you might still be, because they need to know, like, even though there can be great things in store for each of us on our soul's journey, they also need to know it's okay to have those limitations, but we've got to do something about it. So go ahead and jump in.
Absolutely. That's just so true. It's been really important to me my entire life to challenge those fears, to do the things that scared me. I remember I was a kid and I was afraid to walk around the neighborhood by myself for some reason. So one evening, it was a perfectly safe neighborhood. There was no reason for this fear. So one evening, I just took myself on a walk. Because I didn't want there to be limits. I didn't want there to be things that held me back. I wanted to challenge those things. And that's really served me well in my lifetime. That's really served me well.
That's a really interesting take on things because most people don't respond like that, especially when they're young. But what is it that helped you to say, I just want to get over this. I'm just going to go do this. What was it inside you or an inspiration or something that encouraged you to do that?
I do think you're right. I do think I have a natural inborn curiosity and sense of adventure. Having adventures is always my favorite thing. But that doesn't mean things didn't scare me. I have a different sense of, I've noticed over the years that I have a different sense of what's risky than other people do. So for me, what's really risky is not fully living my life. That seems like the biggest risk of all to me.
Mm.
Where, whereas these other things, like moving abroad when I studied abroad during university. I studied in Hungary for a semester. And then after college, when I graduated, I couldn't get a degree. I got a degree in international affairs. And I couldn't get experience or a job in international affairs without experience or a job in international affairs. So my boyfriend at the time and I decided to go get some experience. We moved to Slovakia after university because it was a compromise. I had studied in Hungary and he had studied in St. Petersburg, and everyone in Slovakia at one point had learned Russian. And it was so close to Hungary that lots of people in the marketplace spoke. So we settled on this as like a compromise so that we could go find that experience. And I know that's not the way everyone sees things. It took me a long time, actually, because it's so natural to me. Like to know there's never going to be another time like this. There's not a time like the present. I have to go try things and do new things and experiment. And so I know it took me years to realize that not everybody sees risk the same way I see it.
So, Lisa, when you were young, I'm curious, like, did you pick up some of this from your mom, or were you a standout in your family in this way as well?
I no, my mom was very adventurous. She had saved up money after college to go traveling for 5 weeks in Europe and got engaged to my dad in the meantime. And he was like, "Oh, good. Now we can use that money so that we can put a down payment on a house." And she said, no. She said, no, I am going traveling for 5 weeks. And she traveled all across Europe and did all these fun, adventurous things. And my father, too, he had studied abroad in Rome junior year. So I think part of it I came by naturally. And we moved every 2 to 3 years, just in the States, but we moved a lot growing up. So I'm sure that that taught me some adaptability, but it did have the opposite effect on my sister, who's a homebody.
Yeah, so it could have gone either way. And then there
Totally.
you knew that this was going to be part of your trajectory to put yourself out there, to be global, so to speak. And you started to do that. And then I know you also came up against some problems.
I did.
So
I did. So everything, all the transitions I made from university student to, I ended up working at the embassy in Slovakia for a few years, just working my way up through odd jobs and contractor positions. And then I got a job at USAID. And then in times of transition, some really hard things happened. I ended that 5-year relationship. My grandmother died at the same time. There was big upheaval in my life, and I had to figure out how to change directions. And that's been a theme as well. Like, even though I'm willing to take big risks, and after that, I went home and I established residency to get experience in journalism, because what I liked about the job in Slovakia was the writing. So I guess I've always seen life as kind of like a game of you're getting warmer. So I keep going towards where I'm burning up and away from where I'm freezing. So writing was what I liked, and I was going to get a degree in journalism, but I ended up getting a job at a newspaper and working my way up. But there have been several times and several crisis points in my life. One was when I was so the different career transitions I've been through were university student to embassy worker to newspaper editor to freelance writer and guidebook travel author, and then travel author to life coach, and life coach to safari retreat leader as well.
I'm amazed that you could just even keep that list in your brain.
Yeah, it took a minute. I was stumbling a little. But each time there have been challenges. So even though I do these big things, right? There are ways in my personal life that I really limit myself. Like there are ways that I'm afraid to put my voice out there. There are ways that I can move to a foreign country, but stand up to somebody saying something critical I'm not so great at. There are ways we have a personal limitations, right?
Oh, so okay, so like do you mean in terms of like confrontation with people? Like that's a harder thing for you?
Absolutely it is. Absolutely is. Like I can totally go live in a foreign country, learn a foreign language without any trouble. And yet I want to make everybody feel okay. And I want to make everything nice. And I want not to have conflict, which can actually really hold you back in life, right? Because then you're not asking for what you want. And you can't get what you want if you're not asking for it.
For sure. And then you wind up in roles that don't really serve,
Yes,
like caretaking other people or codependent relationships and things of that nature.
exactly. And so one of the big challenges for me was a few years back when my mom passed away very suddenly. She was seemingly healthy, 70-year-old woman, one day vacuuming her house, and then 3 hours later, she was gone.
Just like that. Yeah.
Just like that. And I really came unmoored. She was a touchstone for me. And it was so shocking and it was so new and there was so much grief that I was fortunate enough to lose a lot of those definitions of myself. Like the definition of not wanting to try new things that are smaller, right? Like I had been collecting art supplies for years and never done anything with them. And in this unmoored state where I didn't have any preconceived notions about who I was or me being nice or fearing, being exposed, I just took an art journaling class. And I completely shocked myself that I could draw. I looked around the first time and I couldn't believe I had done it. The assignment was make a self-portrait. And I looked around and it undeniably looked like a blonde human. I can't say it looked perfectly like me, but it looked human, not alien, which was I was super impressed with. I did not know I could do that. And I took a class in oral storytelling and things like The Moth, with NPR. And I didn't know that I could speak. I'd always liked speaking, but the storytelling was kind of personal. So that was new and felt exposing.
Well, how did you go from grief to these things? Like, I mean, I can imagine, you have an art journal laying around somewhere or a sketch pad or some pens or markers, and you're like, oh, okay, I think I'll mess around with this. But to go into oral storytelling, what was the bridge there for you? What inspired you to that?
So I think the other thing I've been really good at in my life is following my intuition. Like really noticing when things jump out at me. So for the oral storytelling class, I was a writer and I would get lists of writing classes coming up. And one of them was oral storytelling. And it just jumped off the page at me. And I thought, I didn't know why I needed to do that, but I was going to do it. And since I was kind of lost, I didn't stop myself. I didn't stop myself and say, oh, are you really going to want to stand up in front of an audience or are you going to be embarrassed? Or, I just tried it.
Well, that's kind of interesting. So it's like your usual way of rationalizing or thinking through things just went by the wayside.
It totally did.
Yeah, you just used the sense of loss and grief and like what's actually happening to do it very differently, to do things really differently. You're looking at things jumping out at you. You're just like, I'm going to do that. How does that work for you now? Like, is that the same process or is it modified at this point after a number of years?
So it really is similar. I still watch for what lights up for me. I still watch for, ooh, ooh, I get an electric feeling inside my body. And there are techniques I use and train my clients in to know when it's a full body yes, to use your body as a compass, right? To
Yes.
have an embodied knowing for when something jumps out to you. But I think the truth is that we all have these personas, these masks, these ways we've learned to cope with all the expectations that our parents or society had, and
Mm-hmm.
that we don't even realize we have them. Like that we don't even always realize we have them. And after my mom died, it was right before the funeral. My sister and nieces and I were looking for a new dress, and we were in a Christian dress shop, which I didn't even know those existed, but there was one. And there were all these, in the middle of the dress shop, there were all these inspirational books. And there was this tea towel that said wild and free. And I knew in that moment that that's what my mom was now. She didn't have all those limiting beliefs. She didn't have any of that false self or the baggage that we have as humans. And I knew that she 100% saw me and forgive me for whatever I thought my flaws were and saw all the love I had for her cleanly and clearly now because she was wild and free. And if in one moment she could be wild and free, I knew that I could be and that she would want me to be.
So you had basically accepted the permission that it's okay for you to be wild and free.
Yes.
And this just came from your inner knowing. It came from inside you, the truth, not the fear of what's going to happen if I do this, that, or the other, but really tuning into that vibration of what wild and free really is and the love of your mother at the same time.
Yes. And the willingness to transform whatever is in the way of that, right?
Ah, yes.
Because that guidance is within us all. That sense of whether we got it from our parents or not, universal love, the universe does love us. And whether you call that God or the universe or the highest good, love is the actual activating force on this planet. And that is available to us all. But we have to be willing to transform what's in the way of it to be able to access it. And I think that instant with my mom and seeing that even though I'd done all these big things in my life, that there were still very real ways I was holding myself back. Like not living to my highest truth or my authentic self, that it really stirred in a commitment in me to do that. And then to help my clients do that as well.
So can you share a little bit about what that was like for you, that particular part of your journey? So you recognized that you hadn't been living in your highest truth or your highest self, and then you somehow started to move into that. And were you calling in the energy of love to do
I
that, or
was.
was it something else? Mm-hmm.
So first, I kind of just went all in on the personal growth. I hired a coach. I continued with my own training. I've done several trainings. I trained with Martha Beck Institute as a life coach. I trained with Darla Ledoux as a certified source leader. And all the while when you're learning tools to support others, you go first. You're transforming yourself first. Because even if I'm only a half a step ahead of like someone else in their transformation, then we can, like we were talking about, then we can be that guidepost. We can be that light that shows the way, whether it's to our colleagues or to our friends or our children or our clients. We really go first in our businesses, and our businesses are one of the biggest ways we can figure out what's holding us back, because it will bring up all your stuff if you're an entrepreneur. It will bring up all the doubts, all the things.
Right. It's an accelerated path, I think.
Absolutely.
All right. So we say, I'm going to do this. And then we find that to do that, we've got to be a much stronger leader and more stable and more certain than the people we're leading, of course. And our soul is going to bring us whatever it is that we need to transform to be that leader. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's one of those, be careful for what you wish for. Because the universe is absolutely going to provide the opportunities for you to up level. If you say you want to, I was talking to someone recently who wanted to learn more patience, who wanted their intention to be to embody patience. And they are certainly getting the opportunity to test that. Things have come up left and right? And that's how it works. And when we're seeing everything is happening for us instead of to us, it's just a different way to approach life, right? This is all like a big classroom.
You're talking about not just a mindset shift, but an inner shift around a paradigm, right? When we think it's happening for us, when we think it's happening to us, we immediately go, we can only perceive things from, it is a victim point of view. It means we don't have power in any situation. We can maneuver, we can get around. We may not be a victim, lay on the floor and wait for somebody to walk over us, but we're not in control. We're not in command. We're not in empowered choice. But when it's happening for us, then it's like, oh, what can I do with this? What is the opportunity here?
Absolutely. And you can't see me, but I was kind of like a bobblehead doll while you were talking. I agree with all of that. Because empowered choice is really what it's about. Getting in alignment and choosing from that place of your higher self and creating from because when we're creating from that lower energy, from a victim energy or an energy where the options are you win, I lose, or we both lose, instead of there is no winning and losing. This is all a lesson. When we're creating from those lower energies, we're creating from the known. We're creating from the past. We're creating from what we can imagine. But what I know for sure is that so much more is possible than most of us think. So much more. And that we can create from this place beyond the past. That's like the universe wants so much more for us. The countries I've lived in, the books I've written, I never imagined I'd have to do half of that. I really had to be open and available to what shows up because I couldn't have dreamed that big myself. And that was all things that the universe had intending for me. And I couldn't have dreamed that big for myself. So that creating from a place of quantum possibilities where all the possibilities are available at any moment, that we're living in the now and we're living from beyond our past and those personas, really so much more is possible. Because you're right, we can get a lot done in this three-dimensional reality. Even in that lower energy, even in victimhood, we can get a lot done, right? We can push ourselves harder. We can do more. We can work harder. We can make a lot of things happen. And I find that a lot of people, especially the clients that come to me, realize at some point they need to embrace something more to go farther.
Yes. Something outside their sphere of influence and rather open to that, because there is another sphere out there of energy and occurrences and like you said, possibilities, right? And the moment we go through one of those windows or doorways, then another million gazillion doorways open or are
Ones
available
we could never
to
imagine.
us.
Yes.
That's right. They weren't even available. They weren't on the map before. Exactly. So we have access to infinite possibilities. But that's, I think, is just sometimes such a big idea. It's hard for people to grasp, right? And the way that they've been conditioned many people, most of us, were conditioned to, go up a ladder. Go
Yes.
this way, and this is how you do it. And somebody was always telling us how to do it.
And you work
But
hard and you struggle and you sacrifice, all of which sound really awful, actually.
and it is awful. It doesn't
Right?
work. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't. But it gets you so far. It does get you so far. And I'm not
Yes.
saying that challenges in life aren't real. They are. But this is part of why I created Open the Magic in Africa, my Sea to Safari retreat, because I wanted, I find that my clients sometimes have this yearning for more. They know more is possible, right? But they're just not sure how to get there. Like they aren't sure exactly like how to increase their capacity to receive or to stop feeling over responsible for everyone and everything in their lives, right? To
Right.
really open up to those possibilities. So that's part of why I created this retreat. The retreat's a little over the top. We start out at like a seaside villa with the whales spouting in the distance and this luxury environment. And then we go on safari for 6 nights. And my intention is for the soul-led, infinite divine creators who come along with me to have a real felt sense of what it's like to be loved by the universe, to be loved by those land and those animals and by me, right? Because how many of us have that sense of being truly adored? How many of us have experienced that? We have all 2 human lives, right?
Yes.
And there's something about when you're out in the African bush, when you're connecting to that oneness and that wonder, it's just so much easier to see what's real and what's not real. So this life and death struggle with these cheetah and impala in front of me, that is real. What my daughter-in-law thinks of me, not so real.
That's a wonderful way to look at things. I really appreciate that. The life and death struggle that is really clear when one goes on safari, the whole web of life and all of that, and the animals like literally just struggling to exist, and then having other animals chase them, hunt them, etc., and being there in all of that energy. That is a tangible, we'll call it real, like you said, event that occurs on this earth plane. But all that other stuff that goes on in our little minds, right? Making up stories, like the thoughts, trying to figure out what other people are thinking or doing or why, or assumptions or interpretations, whatever it is. Those are the limiters. We just need
Yes.
to face like, okay, here's a real struggle. I'm going to do X, Y, Z to get through it. But I don't need to make up a story about it to make it worse.
Right. And that so much of the pain comes from, what you call the second arrow. Like, okay, a thing happens, but then the story we tell ourselves about it is where a lot of the dirty pain comes from.
Yes.
And so my intention in Open to the Magic in Africa is that people get this real felt sense of what it's like to be connected to oneness, to be connected to that something greater. And then not just for them to have that peak experience, but for them to bring that home and create something different in their life because of it. And whatever that soul desire is, whatever that soul freedom is, it looks different for different clients.
Mm-hmm.
But we create so much differently when we have a real sense of what it feels like to be connected to that oneness. But all those things are around us all the time. Wonder and magic and nature is around us all the time. Fully being present is available to us all the time. Checking our energy, whether we are in a lower energy or we're a higher energy, all those things are always available to us. And we can totally bring those home and create differently in our everyday life.
Yes, we can. Well, thank you for inspiring our listeners today to step into something greater than what they've known, some greater possibilities. And I love that you do this, that you go to Africa. And I suppose you probably have your own reasons exactly why Africa, but it makes a lot of sense to me. Would you like to expand on that just a little bit more about why Africa?
Yeah, sure. It speaks to my soul, and there are numerous reasons for it. I mean, I think at its heart, I want to be respectful because some of us have come from there more recently than others, obviously. But at its heart, it's all of our homeland. It's where the human species came from. And there is something just really magical about being out in the African bush and being there with truly wild creatures. And part of what we do is when we're on the safaris, is part of the work we do is getting messages from the animals and the interpreting. I help my clients interpret the messages, the animals that are showing up and how their behavior is manifesting and what that might mean for the clients going forward and whatever issue they're dealing with. So there's such a magic to the wilderness, and
Yes.
there's being outside in nature all day long. I mean, and part of the attraction for me is really that even as a travel writer, I was a travel writer for a really long time, and I thought Africa was too far. I thought it was too exotic. I thought it was maybe scary. I thought it was, too much money. And after I walked the last 100 miles of the Camino de Santiago in Spain, somebody asked me, okay, if you were able to do that, what's your lesson here? And I said, it's really hard to say anything's impossible because I didn't take that walk alone. I wasn't in shape. I didn't train correctly. And yet I walked every one of those kilometers. There were so many magical things that happened. So my friend said, okay, if anything is possible, what would you like to do? I said, I'd like to go to Africa. And so I got a little ceramic elephant and put it as a totem on my vanity and forgot about it for 6 months. And I was at a writing workshop 6 months later, and I looked at someone I knew and I thought, hey, didn't you used to have something to do with Africa? And she goes, you would be perfect. I'm like, ugh, for what? What? What did I do? And she had a discounted place on a safari that she had helped organize with friends, but she wasn't able to go anymore. Would I like to go?
Look at that. The universe provided.
Right? And I was like, let me think about that for a second. Yes. I mean, I should ask you how much it costs and I should talk to my husband. But yes, I'm going to go. I'm figuring it out. And after that first trip, it was like a homecoming for me. And so it's not just Africa. It's also me sharing the way I experience Africa with my clients. It's about the depth of that experience and communing with that land and those animals and sharing that with them that I am really passionate about.
Beautiful. And you also created a lovely gift for our listeners, right? That's connected to the animals. Would you like to go ahead and tell them about it?
So I've had all these amazing experiences on safari, and I've taken a lot of beautiful photos. But as an art medicine woman, I felt called to create oracle cards as a gift. So I did a art medicine process with different layered painting, layers of intention for this to be of the highest good and really serve anyone who comes in contact with these animal spirits, right? And I channeled a message based on my safari experiences and not the generic experience, like a lion has courage, which is absolutely true, but the real behaviors I've seen and the encounters I've seen. And then I painted animals based on the photos I had taken. So it's a channeled message. It's an art medicine piece, and it's just a gift for those for your clients, for my clients, for anyone who would like to know more about what animal oracle energy might serve them best now. Because there's almost no one I know who's not going through some transition, right? We all have challenges in our lives. It's challenging in our world right now. There are disasters and fires and wars. There are always challenges. And this something greater that we're talking about connecting to is always available to us. And a fun way to connect to it is to pull an animal oracle card and get some wisdom and some message about what you need most right now, what would serve you in this time of transition.
Yes, indeed. That sounds beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners. And I'll just say, I know the power of connecting with animal wisdom from all my years of working in shamanism and meeting with those incredible spiritual beings in another reality. But what
I love journeying.
Yes, but what you're bringing here, I think it's really sweet because it gives them also that tangible visual, and I think they're going to enjoy it. So thank you for that, Lisa.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my absolute joy to share them.
Is there anything before we go that you would like to leave our listeners with? Perhaps an inspiration, a quote or something, or your favorite book?
Well, I just think that I would really love if they did stop to consider that more might be possible than they ever dreamed.
Thank you for that. Yes, indeed. So thank you for being here with us today, Lisa. I appreciate you taking the time and showing up in your magic with your connection to the heart of Africa and to the greater possibilities that are out there for all people. And I definitely want to encourage you to, if you're listening today, to start asking yourself that question. What else might be possible if I listened within, if I could trust myself more? And just begin with that and see where that takes you the next few days, the next weeks, and enjoy your special journey, knowing that more is possible for you. That's it for today's episode, and I would look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me on this soul-nourishing journey today. I hope you're feeling inspired to embrace the stillness of the winter season, connect with your inner wisdom, and allow space for your soul to rest and regenerate. Remember, the darkness of winter is not something to fear or to rush through. It's a powerful time for growth, for healing, and for accessing divine guidance. Before you go, I'd love to invite you to take a moment to reflect on today's episode and perhaps explore the meditation I've created just for you. It's designed to help you connect with the angelic realms and invite love and guidance into your life. You can find it at sayyestoyoursoulpodcast.com/multiverse meditation, and I'll also link it in the show notes for you. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review and share it with someone you think might benefit from this message. You deserve to say yes to your soul, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, take a deep breath, honor the quiet, and trust that the universe is working in your favor. Stay present, stay connected, and most of all, stay true to you.